So this is a map that's actually from your textbook. You can find it on page 870. And what this map shows is how after Hitler lost and Germany was taken over by the Allied forces, how they divided Germany into 4 different zones. They were called zones of occupation. This happened in 1945, and each zone of occupation is represented by a different color on this map. And each zone was controlled by a different country. You had the dark yellow, which was controlled by the British. The green was controlled by the US. The light yellow was controlled by the French. And the red was controlled by the Soviet Union. Now you're also going to see this really, really light purple, blue, gray color over here. And that area was controlled by Poland. You should definitely note that Great Britain, France, and the United States control areas in the western half of Germany, while the Soviet Union controlled the eastern half of Germany. Alright, back to the map. So just like the whole country of Germany was divided into 4 different zones of occupation, the main German city, which was the city of Berlin, was also split into 4 pieces and given to the 4 main winning countries from World War II. And on this map, if you look in the bottom right-hand corner, you can see the different areas of the city of Berlin that were controlled by the French, the British, the Americans, and the Soviets. A really, really important thing to know about the city of Berlin is that if you look back at the bigger part of the map, Berlin is surrounded on all sides by the Soviet zone of occupation. That's all Soviet territory. So once the city of Berlin was divided, the US, Great Britain, and France combined their parts of the city of Berlin into one city, and that became known as West Berlin. And together the US, Great Britain, and France sent money into West Berlin to help with their economic recovery. The Soviet Union did not like that the French, the British, and the Americans wanted to combine their parts of the city of Berlin. They interpreted that as a threat to communism. So, starting in June of 1948, the Soviet Union tried to block France, Great Britain, and the US from merging their sections of Berlin by blockading the city. Now, because Berlin was located in the Soviet zone of occupation, the Soviets simply cut off land access into West Berlin. And remember, West Berlin is the French, British, and American part of the city of Berlin. So you cannot get to the city of Berlin unless you go through the Soviet zone of occupation, and the Soviets, who are protesting the merger of the western side of Berlin, are not letting anyone drive through their zone to get to Berlin. In response, the US, the French, and the British began to airlift, meaning drop in using airplanes. They began to airlift food and supplies into West Berlin to keep the city alive. They kept this up for over a year, sometimes dropping as much as 13,000 tons of supply into the city of West Berlin per day. Because of the Allied efforts with the airlifting supplies, the Soviets were forced to lift the blockade in May of 1949. So after France, Great Britain, and the United States successfully merged their 3 sections of the city of Berlin in May of 1949, those same 3 countries, France, Great Britain, and the USA, decided to merge their territories in the larger country of Germany, and they created a new independent state that was called West Germany. They made a constitution, and they declared that West Germany was its own independent republic in the fall of 1949. And the capital city of West Germany was the city of Bonn. In response to this, the Soviets created the German Democratic Republic, which is more commonly known as East Germany. And East Germany had the capital city of East Berlin. Now, the main differences between these two is that West Germany aligned with Western democracies, with capitalism, while East Germany aligned with communism and the Soviet Union. So this is just another map showing what the division between West Germany and East Germany looked like. Remember, East Germany was controlled by the Soviet Union, while West Germany was influenced by capitalist nations like the US, Great Britain, and France. So after Germany was split into the two new countries of West Germany and East Germany, new alliances were formed that reflected the growing division between countries in the West that were capitalist and countries that were in the East and were communist. And the countries in the West, they joined together in an agreement or a pact that was known as NATO, while the countries in the East joined together in an agreement known as the Warsaw Pact. In April of 1949, led by the US, a large number of countries that were capitalist and were in the Atlantic Hemisphere joined together in a military alliance that became known as NATO. And NATO stands for the North Atlantic Treaty Organization. Some of these countries included the US, Great Britain, France, Belgium, the Netherlands, Luxembourg, Italy, Portugal, Denmark, Iceland, Norway, and Canada. And more members were added as time went by. The important thing to know about NATO was that it was a military alliance, and it was organized mostly for defense. If you were a part of NATO, if you were a member, then you agreed that an attack on one member would be considered an attack on all. So it was kind of like a very intricate, formal alliance system among Western capitalist countries. Now, NATO was created in 1949. In 1955, the Soviet Union and the Eastern Communist world responded with the creation of the Warsaw Pact. And the Warsaw Pact, like NATO, was a military agreement, and what the Warsaw Pact did was it strengthened and defended the Soviet hold on Eastern Europe. And it was basically the Eastern equivalent of NATO.